The longer I looked, the more the thing fascinated me. And in this fascination, there was a curiously disturbing element, hardly to be classified or accounted for. At first, I decided that it was the queer otherworldly quality of the art which made me uneasy. All the other art objects I'd ever seen either belonged to some known racial or national stream, or else were consciously modernistic defiances of every recognized stream. This tiara was neither. It clearly belonged to some settled technique of infinite maturity and perfection, yet that technique was utterly remote from any Eastern or Western, ancient or modern, which I had ever heard of or seen exemplified. It was as if the workmanship were that of another planet. Was as if the workmanship were that of another planet. However, I saw that my uneasiness had a second and perhaps equally potent source, residing in the pictorial and mathematical suggestions of its strange designs. The patterns all hinted of remote secrets and unimaginable abysses in time and space, and the monotonously aquatic nature of the reliefs became almost sinister. Among these reliefs were fabulous monsters of abhorrent grotesqueness and malignity, half ichthyaic and half Batrachian in suggestion. And which one could not disassociate from a certain haunting and uncomfortable sense of pseudo-memory, as if they called up some image from deep cells and tissues, whose retentive functions are wholly primal and awesomely ancestral. At times I fancied that every contour of these blasphemous fish-frogs was ever flowing with ultimate quintessence of unknown and inhuman evil. And some of these things symbolically speak to people. It goes beyond language. An odd contrast to the tiara's aspect was its brief and prosy history, as related by Miss Tilton. It had been pawned for a ridiculous sum at a stop in State Street in 1873 by a drunken Innsmouth man, shortly afterward killed in a brawl. The society had acquired it directly from the pawnbroker at once, giving it a display worthy of its quality. It was labeled as a probable East Indian or Indo-Chinese province, though the attribution was frankly tentative. Miss Tilton, comparing all possible hypotheses regarding its origin and its presence in New England, was inclined to believe that it formed part of some exotic pirate horde discovered by old Captain Obed Marsh. The view was surely not weakened by the insistent offers of purchase at a high price, which the Marshes began to make as soon as they knew of its presence, and which they repeated to this day, despite the Society's unvarying determination not to sell. As the good lady shooed me out of the building, she made it clear that the pirate theory of the Marsh fortune was a popular one among the intelligent people of the region. Her own attitude toward shadowed Innsmouth, which she had never seen, was one of disgust at a community slipping far down the cultural scale, and she assured me that the rumors of devil worship were partially justified by a peculiar secret cult which had gained force there and engulfed all the Orthodox churches. It was called, she said, the Esoteric Order of Dagon. Okay, I knew Dagon was going to come somewhere. I think I read this before 20 years ago or something, too, so I think over 20 years ago, but, and undoubtedly, the debased, quasi-pagan thing was imported from the East a century before, at a time when Innsmouth fisheries seemed to be going barren. Its persistence among a simple people was quite natural in view of the sudden and permanent return of abundantly fine fishing, and it soon came to be the greatest influence in the town, replacing Freemasonry altogether, and taking up headquarters in the old Masonic Hall on the New Church Green. On New Church Green must have been a street. All this, to the pious Miss Tilton, formed an excellent reason for shunning the ancient town of decay and desolation, but to me it was merely a fresh incentive. To my architectural and historical anticipations was now added an acute anthropological zeal, and I could scarcely sleep in my small room at the Y on this night, as this night wore away. And the official start of part 2, but we're breaking this up differently. So this is 3. I'm still in 3, but this is where the official part of start 2 starts. Shortly before 10 in the next morning, I stood with one small valise in front of Hammond's drugstore in Old Market Square, waiting for the Innsmouth bus. As the hour for its arrival drew near, I noticed a general drift of the loungers to other places up the street, or to the ideal lunch across the square. Evidently, the ticket agent had not exaggerated the dislike which local people bore toward Innsmouth and its denizens. In a few moments, a small motor coach of extreme decrepitude and dirty gray color rattled down State Street, made a turn, and drew up at the curb beside me. I felt immediately that it was the right one. A guess, which the half-legible sign on the windshield, Arkham, Innsmouth, Newport, soon verified. There were only 3 passengers, dark, unkempt men, of sullen visage, and somewhat youthful cast, and when the vehicle stopped, they clumsily shambled out and began walking up State Street in a silent, almost furtive fashion. The driver also alighted, and I watched him as he went into the drugstore to make some purchase. This, I reflected, must be the Joe Sargent mentioned by the ticket agent, and even before I noticed any details, there was spread over me a wave of spontaneous aversion, which could not be neither checked nor explained. It suddenly struck me as a very natural thing that the local people should not wish to ride on a bus owned and driven by this man, or to visit any oftener than possible the habit of such a man and his kinsfolk. When the driver came out of the store, I looked at him more carefully and tried to determine the source of my evil impression. He was a thin, sloop-shouldered man, not much under 6 feet tall, dressed in shabby blue civilian clothes and wearing a frayed golf cap. His age was probably 35, but the odd, deep creases in the sides of his neck made him seem older when one did not study his dull, expressionless face. He had a narrow head, bulging, watery blue eyes that seemed never to wink, a flat nose, a receding forehead and chin, a singularly undeveloped ears. His long, thick lip and coarse-pored, grayish cheeks seemed almost beardless, except for some sparse yellow hairs that straggled and curved in irregular patches. In places, the surface seemed quite irregular, as if